Hi, my name is Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk about why wallowing in your pain can help you actually get rid of your symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and post traumatic stress. And that's what we're going to talk about. This is not a very popular topic, but that's why I wanted to go straight into it because we're really in a place where we really just need to get rid of some symptoms. And if you've got symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, I know you're like, Amen, hallelujah, yes, Rachel, because these things take up so much time and energy, and we can carry them around for a lifetime. And that we've watched people do that for generations and generations, and times are changing. We have really made incredible progress with the treatment of these challenges and this brain dysfunction, and and we can be free, and we can really make some huge transformations in how we're showing up in the world, become more of our authentic self, and really be proud of who we are, and be present, and be open to living and loving and serving and being you're just your highest self, who you're supposed to be here, who you came to be here. And it's really these symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress are part of they're actually coming up, and they're actually coming from the brain's efforts to heal itself. It's like trying to turn a motor and that's not functioning well and sparks are flying. Those sparks are symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, but those are happening because the motor is trying to turn. And that motor is very specific to the healing process that the brain takes to take um, unresolved material, take it through the motor. But it's not working. And really, trauma and pain can really break that function. And so pain is a really key part of getting rid of symptoms. And pain can break your whole healing process, and it can break the whole symptom elimination process that your brain has and that authentically uses and naturally uses. And if that function gets broken, symptoms start to pile up. And if that process was broken young or impaired when you were young, that's a lot of time you've lived your life without a very well functioning process for eliminating symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress from a brain function level. And that's a lot of the reason why many people are walking around very highly symptomatic, even if they're high functioning, that they're experiencing lots of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. So, to be talking about how to get rid of those symptoms is the most important thing I can be doing with my time at this very moment. And really, I want to pack this with a lot of power. And so that's why we're going after pain, because pain will activate your survival system. And when your survival system is activated, you are not in a healing function. That healing, that very natural healing function that your brain is very good at, and brains are very good at this. If your brain could do this process, it would be awesome, right? And so that's really why we want to look at this process and figure out how to make it work, especially with pain. Because once pain comes along, your survival system gets activated and it will stop that healing process. It will stop your brain from going through its healing motions, its healing functions. And so this is why this is a really, really important topic. And really, I had several topics titles to this. One is, should I sit in my pain? And I want to answer that question. The other one was, I thought I would do this for therapists, which I'm not going to. I'm going to do it for everybody. But because therapists have a habit sometimes of moving people out of their pain too quickly. And I want to clean that up for everybody to understand when to move somebody and shift somebody out of pain quickly, why not to, and really to understand this from a brain function process so that people get more healing and there's less frustration. Okay. That also goes for coaches. Coaches can be notorious because you're afraid of getting into the mental health. You're the health field of emotions and mental wellness. And so you can be really afraid of having people sit in their pain and you can really shift them out too quickly when they're actually in the brain state to actually process that, or they've chosen you to be the person to process their pain with them, and you're not comfortable enough to do it. So you're like, let's move. And that person is frustrated because this was their moment. And I want to talk about that. And I want to give you just, I want you to do this well. I believe that working with pain is one of the most important skills we humans will ever develop and we will ever need to acquire. And this is working with pain is so liberating. It's on the other side of pain is open doors. And so, and I would love to talk about that from a physical pain perspective, but I don't, that's outside my field. For the majority of things. Though what I will tell you is that working through emotional pain has a transformative effect on the physical body. It's wonderful. Um, and I have seen where we will process pain that will clear from the body as well and eliminate long-term issues in the body. So I do think this is a powerful point of impact. And it's one that if you can learn how to do well, you can do it for yourself, you can do it for your children, you can do it for your clients, you can do it for your community. You can really help move a lot of this pain that we've got going on in the world right now and really be part of that. And so, but it's an inner journey first. I always encourage people to do this work from the inside out, and that's great because if you can't do it for you, I'm sure you cannot do it for anybody else. It's like I like that scripture that says, "Pull the plank out of your own eye before you go and try to pull the sliver out of somebody else's eye." I don't know who's got the plank and who's got the sliver, but what I do know is that if you can figure it out for yourself, it's much easier to say, "Hey, this is what I tried and what worked." And why it worked. And I'm telling you, this is from me. I had a raging anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress disorders. I say anxiety disorder, but I had all three. And the learning how to do this for myself was I could never have been the therapist or coach that I am now without that. And I would say I would not even be able to be the parent that I am now without that. And so, let's dive in here and let's look at that because okay, so should I sit in my pain? Yes, you should. Okay. But I want you to understand that when you sit in pain, your survival system will activate. And that will shut the whole healing down. So, really, there is a time to work with pain and to sit in your pain and wallow. But usually, this is the most difficult skill that people will build. And when I'm working with clients, mostly what happens is that there is inside of people with anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, there is a lake of pain inside, whether it's a lake of grief. Sometimes it's shame pain, sometimes it's rejection pain, sometimes it's attachment wounding pain. But inside, there is a lake of pain. And most people that I encounter cannot just walk into the lake and start working with the pain. Their survival system will freak out and knock them out of whatever. Whether that means dissociating, whether that means becoming unstable, whether that means regressing, whether that means moving 10 steps back. It is not the right time for that. Right. And so there is a time to really shift yourself and shift others away from the pain. Right. If you're a therapist or you're a coach, there's a time to shift people away from that. And so, but the good thing is here is that there is so much work around this lake of pain that needs to be done and can be done. It's like you need to go in here and build the infrastructure to the lake. There needs to be a road, an entryway that is very well traveled. We need to cut down some blackberry bushes. We need to get another road in there. We need to make friends with all the wild animals that live on the outside of the pain. There is a lot of work. Okay. Now I'm using metaphors, but really there are limiting beliefs. There are so many flashbacks around this pain. There is so much There are so many ways this lake of what's around the lake, because this lake is protected by your survival system. It wants to keep everyone out of the lake. Okay, I don't want to get too metaphorical here. I feel like I've gone very far into the metaphor. Let me see if I can bring this back. So let's say when you were 8, you had this massive traumatic event that happened. Maybe you lost a loved one, and at the time there was not support to help you move through that pain. And so, but life kept moving, and everyone kind of ushered you along, and so that pain just sat there. And mentally, every time you touch the pain in there, it hurt you. And your system, your brain is so smart, it learned how to reorganize so that how can we help her never touch that pain so that this painful thing she's doing right here never happens. So it goes and it creates a layer around the lake. So and it's like, okay, we did it. We made it so she won't go there. But life keeps happening, and maybe when she's 12, 13, 14, 15, she touches the lake 6 more times. And the brain every time thinks, how am I going to make this more and more solid here? She keeps getting in here. I need to make this a little bit bigger. And so pretty soon there's a lot built around the lake that is creating its own dysfunction. It is not the pain, but it is creating new layers of pain, new dysfunction, right? And so because so working with the outer layers of this really offers people an opportunity to learn how to do the little steps of the big steps, right? Because as you get closer to this um, the edge of what your inner world has constructed to keep you out of the pain, it will create some level of pain, but nothing close to what's on the inside. And so there you get these little opportunities to work with little bursts of pain. And once you get that little bit of pain and you take that pain and you move it through your brain's healing process and it comes out and you see what your brain actually can do with pain and it builds things with it and it creates new ideas and new ways of being and it creates relief, then all of a sudden that goes in and you're learning there and your brain will get rid of that pain. And so that thing no longer has pain on it. And your brain decides, oh, we want to totally redo this. We don't want it to be like this anymore. They get to work and they start taking that apart. And they like, I don't think we even need this. And then you go to the next layer and you pull that layer and you manually walk your brain through its healing process because that process is not functioning well. Okay. And I talk about this a lot and I'll talk about how to walk your brain through that in a little bit. But this process gets people prepared to do a big work in the lake. Okay. And so because that lake of pain, every bit of it, every ounce of it needs to be gotten in there with a lake of pain vacuum and sucked out of that area. We need to get in there and suck all that stuff out. We need all of that pain gone from there. That is the job. Your brain can do this. This is what brains do. And that's how I see it. We're going to get in there and we're going to suck up all the pain juice in there. And what happens after that is all of a sudden all that pain is gone and you can touch it without going into agony. And you can touch it without going into agony. Now all of a sudden you go in there, your brain goes in there and it's like, that used to hurt, it doesn't hurt. And then it goes in there and it walks around a little bit, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna build in here? We should do something with this. And it starts to create the things you've always wanted to create. It's phenomenal. Okay. And so it is so important that you get to that layer of pain and you sit in it. Maybe you even wallow. And I want to translate wallow in pain. I'm using that word because it has a negative connotation and I like to snatch that stuff back so it doesn't have negative connotation. And I like when our brain starts to attack us with old words like, oh, you're wallowing in the pain. We're like, yeah, I'm supposed to wallow in the pain, that we make new associations with these horrible words. So I would say, yes, what wallowing means is putting your attention on it, spending time with it, looking at it. And looking at it is different for you if you have a different sensory style. If you are a kinesthetic person, you're going to feel into that lake of pain. If you are a visual, you're going to need to go look at that like a pain. You might need to walk around a little bit and just keep looking at it. And that is your way of paying attention to it. If you're auditory, maybe you just need to hear it. You need to imagine what that lake of pain sounds like, maybe what the wind sounds like going over it. You need to know that pain in that way. And maybe you're somebody who's more of a some people call them digital processors, where it's more thoughts going on. You just need to know the pain, right? And that whatever that is in there, that is you putting you are moving the initiator of healing in your brain onto what you want healed. You want that lake of pain healed, you put it on there. And by paying attention, that's how we load things onto the healing dock for it to be moved through the pathways. And so, in order to do that, we have to pay attention to that. Now, there's so many people that don't want you to do that. And most of our culture is made up of don't do that. Don't be such a negative Nancy. Don't wallow in your pain. Don't, what do you want a cookie? Don't be a negative person. All this stuff. I think I repeated that one, but all this stuff, they don't want you to do it. And we're shamed for doing it. And because we keep getting interrupted, we cannot complete the process with pain. And it's important that we do not interrupt this process. I'm going to talk more about it because you're like, go into the lake of pain. Okay, I'm going to talk more about dosing and things like that. But because we don't want you overwhelmed with this. This is one of the hardest things that you will ever process. And so when it's the right time for you, then it's time to do it and do it well. And that means for some of you, it means taking lots of breaks. For some of you, you'll get in there and roll around in it and wallow. I'm amazed by you. Rock on. And there's other people like me that just kind of need to take a little teaspoon to it and go move it. My vacuum cleaner is a little teaspoon. Until I get enough courage to go in there and with my wet vac on and you know. Um, anyway, but people don't like people to be in pain because pain is scary. It's scary to the people that are experiencing pain and scary to the people that are seeing people in pain. And so a lot of times when you see people who don't want to do this, what really they're saying is they don't have skills to hold space for your pain. Right? That's one of the big things that they're saying. And they don't even necessarily know that they don't have skills for that. All of a sudden, they're irritable. What irritability is a function of the survival system starting to like, hey, we're in danger. Other people their survival systems feel in danger by your pain, right? And that's why, and this happens. This can happen as a therapist too. And understand, your therapist is a human with a survival system attached. We don't just get to move our survival system out the way. Hopefully, if you are working with somebody who's a therapist, they also know how to work with their own survival system. I process pain that should never have occurred on the earth. And I don't even speak to it because I don't want to pass it on even in words to anybody else, right? So, but I'm going to tell you that every once in a while, someone's pain will hit me, and I'm like, oh, on the inside. My clients will see me tap with them because we're gonna move this pain. And I'm using emotional freedom techniques right here. I have no problem breaking out any one of my interventions on my own brain because if I become overwhelmed with pain, I'm going to go into a survival state. And then I will only have room for me. And it will no longer be about my client at all. And this is something that I'm aware of as a professional. And this is something I've been a professional and not been aware of and been mentally ill. I'm sorry. But back when I first graduated from college, I had an undiagnosed mental health disorder. What we don't know, right? And but since then, I have not practiced with an active disorder. Anyway, but on the other side of that, right? But I'm somebody who practices like working with my survival center a lot, and mine still will hurt with you, right? Occasionally. Um, but imagine the people around you who have no training in this and who are taught by the world at large, right? And they don't know how to recognize the fact that their survival system has even gone off. They don't know what that feels like in their body. All they know, the next thing you know is we're in pain and we got to make that pain stop. Where is it coming from? Where is it? Oh, it's her. She's in pain and you got to get her out of it. Make her stop now. And next thing you know, they're doing all the things to redirect you out of the pain. Don't touch the pain around me. And this I got from um, a woman in my Facebook group, a question, and I was like, yes. I have not done a live about that, but I'm weaving it in today. She talked about how people will use religious expressions to redirect her. And she needs to sit in the pain, and she can intuitively feel the need to sit in the pain. And so, and we know when that time is coming. It's just like giving birth. I'm sure I've never given birth. I had all 5 C-sections. But let's pretend like I do know. And I'll tell the story like that. But you know when your time is coming. And even I had that experience. You know when it's time to deliver this thing. And that's really a time when it's like you need to surround yourself with people who are ready to help you move that pain. Just like when your time is ready, you surround yourself with people who are going to help you move that baby. This is a great life work. To move pain through your system is big. It's powerful. It is freeing on so many levels. And it can really go wrong, right? And it can really be frustrating if you're about to have this baby and you're about to go and you know it, and everyone's saying, no, put the baby back in there. No, put the baby back in there. You're like, get out of my way, right? And we are doing that to the people around you emotionally all the time. And don't do that to them. At least, since you're watching my video, I'm educating you right now. At least say this. I can see your pain. Can see your pain is coming up. And I can tell you, I'm not in a space to be able to help you with this, but I think this is important. And I hope that you find the support that you need. Okay? You can acknowledge it. And you can acknowledge the fact that you can't do this with them. You don't have to. Just like if somebody gives birth right here in my office, I'm not helping you, okay? I want you to know I love all my clients. I'm not helping you have a baby. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, this looks really important. And I'm gonna call 911 and I'm gonna say, please come here now because this woman has no help. Okay, that's what's gonna happen. And am I gonna feel guilty about that? Oh my gosh, I should have known how to help her have a baby. No, I'm gonna say, I'm out of here. You're here, have my office. I'm not. And it's like there's nothing different with that with emotions. You're not wrong if you can't help somebody move and sit with their pain. As a matter of fact, I have many moments when I was younger. I had a friend whose husband was killed in an early accident, and I was too afraid to go to her. And I remember I avoided her. And I felt shame about that for years. I wish I would have been able to say, this is big and I don't have the skill for this. I cannot hold space for her. And I love her and I hope she gets the help she needs. I wish I could have cognitively processed that and acknowledged I don't have it. Or if I had acknowledged it, I could have said, okay, I don't have skills for this. How does one go get skills for this? And maybe I could have gotten some skills for this. I don't know. It could have gone much differently if I would have acknowledged the fact that I don't have skills. Okay. Sometimes what's going on around us is people don't trust pain. They don't trust the pain. I think this is a thing that happens in childbirth, I think, is that as people experience pain, they freak out. Well, I'm not going to live. I'm going to die. Yeah. But, midwives, they're like, you'll be fine. This happens. Breathe. I don't know what they do, but they do. They have skills for this. They have skills to hold space for the pain. I don't. Don't call me for your labor pains, right? I don't have that. But for this emotion pain, there you can develop this skill. If you don't have it now, you can get it. And guess what? You're going to need to do it for you. So this, I would say, is a skill to get for yourself. But when it's time to move pain, find people that can trust the pain. Midwives know that this pain can be trusted and it's going to produce something awesome. They have a lot of faith in the pain, right? And they also know when pain's going bad, which is important that a therapist knows the difference between good pain and bad pain. And I'm going to write that down because that's exactly how I want to talk about it. Okay. Right? Because that's how we help the process along. And we're here to make sure it stays in the good pain area or the healthy pain or productive pain, not the counterproductive pain or the traumatizing pain or the this is not going to go well pain. Our job is to help you move in that direction where you're going to get the beautiful benefits of the pain that you're moving because the brains convert pain into very, very valuable substances. I'm going to say substances because I think that covers healthy subconscious programming. It converts pain into wisdom, trust, expansion, development. It does huge things. It does massive things to move pain through the healing, their brain's natural healing process. And it's not that challenging to do, but it need to take a little while to not it doesn't need to. Scratch that. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Um, some people have a dysfunctional relationship with pain that comes from their own trauma that has absolutely nothing to do with you. And so if you can understand that about people, you can not take their responses personally, and you can start to, um, unravel yourself from the dance of trying to get something from them that they cannot give to you, right? I have a phrase for this that once I say it, I'm like, reroute. Trying to get blood from a turnip. That was something growing up. And I found the application of that, what that meant for me. And it's this. I'm trying to get something met here that's not available. Right. And we can, especially when we're talking about our family or our parents or that family of origin stuff, we're talking about primal bonding that this is a place where we're programmed on a primal level to get our needs met. And so we can stay in that, like, we should, this should, and it's not. And so it's very difficult to break out of this thing, but you can do the brain work to do that. It makes it much easier. And all of a sudden you can be out and then you're like, I still have this need. How can I get it met? And then you're free to move in that direction. Um, but um, but understand that. The other thing is that um, this is something for therapists and coaches that um, redirecting people away from pain too early. And I wanted to share with you a couple strategies that do this. These strategies are wonderful at the right time, right? I'm on midwives today for some reason, no idea why, but if when you're going through your laboring process, there is a time for pushing and there is a time for not pushing. If you push at the wrong time, you're in trouble. If you push at the right time, magic happens, right? And so these phrases are really great phrases, but they redirect people from the pain. And if you understand that pain is something that is something from the back of the brain is okay, pain can be very physical in nature. Usually when I'm talking about emotional and mental pain, I'm talking about something that's generated in the back of the brain and that's hanging back there. That pain um, needs to move from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. But when your survival system is running, all is activated, which pain will activate it. It shuts down the thinking center, to very small, to about 20% function, and it does not want anybody to talk to the thinking center because it just shut that down. Thank you very much. And if you do, this is why people snap at people and like, I don't want to answer your questions, right? Is that, or I don't want to think about that, or we can just feel insulted because we're in a survival state. And the brain has a process for moving naturally out of survival states and turning back on the thinking center. And when that process happens naturally, it's beautiful. A lot of people have tricks to turn back on the thinking center. And this is difficult for people to do, and it really has to be done well. But if somebody is ready to move their pain, they don't want these. They don't want you to do this yet. I was working with another practitioner recently, and we were doing energy work, and it was very clear to me that there was more pain to move. And this practitioner started shifting the person we were working with. They started shifting her away from the pain, and so I brought her back just because if we don't get it all, she's got to come back. I'm not trying to bring somebody back to the pain hole more, especially because it didn't feel, I'm going to use that word, like it was going to be a lot more pain in there. So let's do her a huge favor of not having to open this wound back all the way up. Let's do a thorough job in there. Because once all the pain is sucked up out of there, sometimes the brain will just start healing on its own and very beautifully. It doesn't really need to be walked through its healing functions. But if there's pain still in there, that means there's material that hasn't been moved from the back of the brain to the front. That means the front of the brain doesn't have all that it needs from that issue to recreate something new. And so that means you got to go hunt for the pain and you got to go suck it out and move it. And so, okay, and so you're hearing me say that let people sit just a little bit longer. Because the truth of the matter is that once the brain will not just stand there looking for pain just for no reason. And as a matter of fact, once it's done, it will pull out itself and move on to the next phase of its healing process. You can't hold somebody in pain where there's no pain. Somebody's not just going to sit and wallow when there's not wallowing. What happens? It's really funny, because the wallowing, right, is really a function to engage the healing center and the initial parts of the healing function. That's what this is all about, paying attention here. This is a function of the prefrontal cortex. It's like, let's look around in here. What is all of this stuff? And then the back of the brain comes together if the process is moving, right? And it all works together, and they all work together to move this thing through the process. Okay? And so when that's finished, your thinking center, whose priority is healing and cleaning up stuff, says, "Oh, there's no more cleaning here to do." Okay. And it's off and running. You can't bring it back. It doesn't want to get here. You bring it back and it's off, and you bring it back and it's off. I mean, I do this with people to check to see if there's any more healing work to do. I just bring them back in here again. And maybe we'll find one or two things and then the brain's off. And then I'll say, well, but, let's look at this thing again. And they're off. I could do that all day and their brain would do the same exact thing. It doesn't want to. Pretty soon they would be like, look, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Rachel, that's what would happen because the brain has other priorities now. It has the next thing it wants to do. And if you have complex childhood trauma or you've got layers of work to do, then it's off to the next one until it's resolved all the things it wants to resolve. And so you will actually annoy the brain by continuing to do that. So people will not just sit and wallow for the rest of their lives in pain that is properly processed. And that was a tongue twister or one of those things. But are you hearing me? Nobody who does the healing process effectively is in danger of becoming a pain wallower. Now, let me tell you who becomes pain wallowers. Those people who cannot properly move the pain. The prefrontal cortex, the healing center, will come back to that pain over and over and over and over and over. And you will not be able to stop it. You will not be able to distract it. As soon as you are on a drive where your brain is available, it will go there. As soon as you're sleeping, it will go there. As soon as you're awake, all day long, it will go there. And it will annoy you because the brain wants what the brain wants. And that is to heal your wounds. And if it gets locked on there and it can't do the healing process, it's still going to do it. It's not aware that nobody else is on board with the healing process. It's just, time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts every day, all day. This is a mess. So incomplete healing processes are what makes symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And so that's why it's important to clear the pain. And I'm not saying I don't want to disrespect it and say get rid of it. I want to say suck it up through your brain's healing process. Get it there in there and let your brain work on it. Let your brain do the work. Because what your brain will be able to do with that is really reconstruct your life to make it more authentic to you and to fit you and to help you reach your goals. That's your brain's job. If your brain is not doing that, there is a problem. And it's this this process is blocked. That's the problem. And so let me tell you that this problem, this process in the brain is dysfunctioning. Right? If you've got symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, pain has knocked it off. Your brain is going to need support to process pain and probably other things. But pain is a really big indicator of once the pain goes through, your brain can get into the rest of the stuff and do the work it can do. Once it comes into pain again, it will need help and then it will do the work it will do. And when I say it needs help, I need to go turn my AC on because homegirl is becoming, one second. I just need some AC support. Okay, so let's come in here and talk about how to process pain. And I'm going to break it down to you in the itty bitty thing. And this is like learning salsa. And you can learn that when you do the first steps of the dance, you can do it very rigidly. As long as you just do it. And pretty soon, once you can do that, then you add in the next thing. And then you add in the next thing, and pretty soon you can do the whole dance. And then the next thing, you can put personality into the dance. And then you can customize the dance to you in each song, right? But when we're talking about brain function, it is very, very tiny how the brain moves this. And in the beginning, that might be all your brain can tolerate is this little bit of tiny stuff. Now, what we want to do is I'm going to tell you this from this perspective, and then I'm going to give you the details. We want to take that little piece of pain. We want to go pay attention to it, right? We want to look at it. We're not going to deal with all the pain. We're just dealing with one, because your brain has to learn this dance all over again. And we're going to take this one little bit of pain, and we're going to set it in the middle, and we're going to look at it so that the healing process is initiated. Then you're going to combine in an intervention that helps your whole brain come together to move that little pain package all the way through the healing process. I like 4 interventions for this, and when I am working with people, I customize these interventions to them specifically because brains like different things, and I need to make sure that whatever they're working with works for them, especially because I tend to work with people who are so symptomatic they cannot tolerate messing around and not having an intervention that works. And I can't tolerate that. So no matter who I work with, I'm making sure that the intervention, their brain likes it and it actually gets them results. And you can see that within the first 5 to 10 minutes of working with any intervention. So this is and I like that because that's immediate gratification and feedback. And I love that stuff. Anyway, the 4 that I like to teach people to use or see if they work with them is emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR, eye movement desensitization or reprocessing. Okay, this one, eye movement, EMDR is not typically one I start people out with because there are some really major, massive challenges that come along with it, and I want to make sure their brain is functioning, if they're the right fit for it, before I hand that over and teach them to use it. But I will teach my clients all of these things at the right time for them. But I start people with the first 3, definitely. Matter of fact, I have free trainings of these 3 interventions and an alternative use of EMDR in my Facebook group, Women Releasing the Baggage of Anxiety, Depression, and PTSD. If you join that group, you can watch those trainings and start playing with the interventions and see if you like them and if your brain likes them and if they get you results, which is ultimately what you're looking for. So right now we've got this little piece of pain right here in the middle, and we've got the initial process. We've got your inner healer paying attention to it. It's got it on the launch pad for healing. And then you're going to engage yourself in an intervention of your choice, emotional freedom techniques or thoughtful therapy or energy medicine. And you're going to do that so that your brain moves this piece through the healing process so it doesn't get stopped anywhere along the path. And the most important place it doesn't get stopped is right at the gates where the survival system is standing, because you need to sneak this little piece of package through that gate past your survival system so that your survival system doesn't say, hey, what's that? Put it back. We don't want that. We want your survival system to say, oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, keep it moving. And be in agreement with this thing moving through the healing pathways. And so these interventions help your survival system allow these things to actually move through. I don't find that brains need much help with pain after that, but you can continue to use your intervention until it feels right. And I give more instructions, but it's not quite for this video. Until the next time. And now, not until the next time. Usually once pain makes its way through, it's done. It's like you don't eat the same food twice. The brain is the same way. You don't eat the same pain twice. Once pain is moved through, even if it's a traumatic memory that has caused you lifelong pain, now you might need to come to this memory and grab off chunks of pain and move it through the healing pathways. I recommend that. That seems to be very tolerable to people, even if, especially if it's really, really painful. And pretty soon it gets to be small enough that people are like, oh, let me get that. And they just move it through the healing pathways. And so they don't want to go little small anymore. And the brain doesn't. And that's great because you will go slow like this until the brain says, give me that. I've been looking for that for a long time and I'm ready to process it and I can, right? Because brains are supposed to be able to process this stuff. That's their job, but sometimes the pain is too big that it can't. And sometimes you get the pain down to this one and the brain is like, I can do it now. And it will do it for you. We only need to help the brain as much as we need to help it for it to be able to step in and do its work. And so the pain no longer stays in the form of pain. It will take new shapes. The brain will create new shapes out of pain. And those new shapes are usually molded specifically for you and your life and your dreams and what you want. And your brain makes programs for that. Okay, I have to tell you this because this is really cool. Okay, so that's one of the functions that the brain does, okay? This little piece of pain, what it also does is that once it gets through the survival system, it goes through the healing pathways. And one of the things the brain, the prefrontal cortex makes is a new survival program for that little piece of pain and anything that's around it, right? So if this pain was associated with math, okay, that's what comes up for me. If this one was associated with the fear of math, so a math phobia, all of a sudden, once this one gets through, if this was the root of the math phobia, this little piece of pain, which we do find roots in little pieces of pain like this. Once this gets through, your brain will rewrite a survival program for this thing that's associated with math. And the next thing you know, you don't have a math phobia anymore. Your survival system is not reactive to math because your brain was able to create a new program for it. And that new program is designed to make your survival responses accurate to whatever they're interacting with. Now, previously, for whatever reason, and there are thousands, your brain had made the association between math and pain. And there was a survival program written for this that may look like your mind going blank, blacking out, negative beliefs associated, whatever. But as your brain moves this through, it makes programming, survival programming that your survival system then must obey and use. And it will not respond to the same triggers in the same way. I hope that makes sense because that was really fun to say because that means a lot to me. But I'm not certain I made it mean a lot to you, but it's a concept I'd like to keep sharing about. So you'll probably see it come up in different videos, in future videos. But that's one of the fun things. And that's what's so important about pain. If you're sick of having the same reactions and the same triggers, go on a pain hunt. I don't encourage you to do that by yourself if you're not good at managing pain. And most people are not, myself included. This is a skill I built. So just be honest about that. But, you know, why I give people the tools, and I give people the tools. I give them the trainings for free because there's a lot of work that needs to get done, and there's a lot you can do yourself. And then there's some work that's a little bit more complex. And what I have found is that I've built this program called Inner World Transformation. It comes in 8 parts, and my whole objective was to learn how um, to help people. I wanted to see if I could move a whole anxiety disorder or depression or trauma disorder into remission. And then it turns out that I could. So then I was like, can I help more people do that? And so it turns out I could. Then I was like, could I teach them how to do this for themselves? And it turns out that I could. And that's really how I've developed Inner World Transformation. So it's an 8-part program that's designed to help people to heal themselves. And this is the program that I have people walk through in my therapy practice. So I'm providing a therapeutic relationship and space for them to do their own healing work, even though I also jump in there and we tackle all kinds of things together. But ultimately, I teach them how to do this for themselves. And this is what I do in coaching is I provide the support, but they're doing the work. And so I help people do this themselves. And so following that program, that is a structured program that helps you get in there and work through your symptoms layer by layer. And I've tested it out enough to know that it's in the order, it's what people need in the order that they need it, to be able to move their whole disorder into remission. And it's proven to be very successful. Um, so there's things in there that you can that right, so you can get the support you need to do this work yourself, and then you can even get more support to do this work yourself. You can get somebody. I have an intensive 8-week program, for example, where I meet with people for 2 hours twice a week. So 4 hours a week, we do this work, and they do the work 2 hours a day between. It's intensive, and we're in it to really clean up their whole brain and create function and do all these things because the brain's ready to go. And some people are ready to do an intensive overhaul. And so I do that as well. But even with if you want to use your insurance, if you want to use whatever you want to use, there's a method for you to get whatever support you need to do this, but the pain has to go. Whether you do it yourself, whether you work with me, whether you work with my program, whether you work with a therapist in the community, you need to start finding these people that can help you sit with this pain, that can help you be in it. And some of this thing help you be in it is help you get to it. I mean, that's a process in and of itself. In my program, weeks 1 through the part 1, part 2, part 3 is a lot about this. It's interesting because I have people do that stuff intensively and we can get really to the lake of pain very, very quickly. But other people need a slower pace, right? I also have a program that's 8 months, right? And so it can take 3 months if that's what you need, right? But you don't have to wait for weekly sessions with a therapist. That will take a really long time. I find that it takes about 120 to 300 hours of specific and targeted brain work. That means using interventions. That's a long time. And if we just wait for weekly sessions, that's 1 hour per week of the work. That will take you 2 to 6 years to get through that time. But if you learn how to do this yourself and you're getting the support you need, you can resolve this stuff in 2 to 6 months. Or let's be generous and give you a whole year to work this thing out. Yes. So, you got to get to the pain, right? That's a step. And so that's really I want to talk about good pain and bad pain. Pain that is creating symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, which would mean that the survival system is engaged and is active and is defending and is resisting. This is bad pain. This is one where you definitely do want to move yourself out of quickly. If you have a client who's dissociating in their pain, who cannot tolerate their, like, who has symptoms, racing thoughts, and is going to vomit, and their heart feels like they're starting to go into a full-blown panic attack, this lets you know this is too much pain for their brain to handle. They're not ready for that. And I don't care if you cut the pain up into itty bitty parts and it's that big and they're still having that reaction. It's still too big. We need to take that thing back in there, chop it up even tinier. We need to pulverize that thing and make it a dust and then put it through. Whatever. Or sometimes it's just backing up a little bit more and working with the survival system a little bit longer. That's okay too. And so it's important that but that's a very different, that's the bad pain. And that pain, I'd say do everything you've got to get them out of that. And distract them from going back in the pain. Help their survival system build something that keeps them out of there. Not forever, but just for a little while we're doing the rest of the work. Okay, we therapists have tricks for that. Brain tricks. I teach some of that in my program so that you know how to have those brain tricks too, because those are important. Let's see. Good pain. Good pain is good pain. It feels good. It feels awful, but it feels good. Maybe it's crying pain. Maybe, and you're not worried that sometimes we can panic over crying because we feel like we're going to cry and we're never going to stop. That can terrify us and activate our survival system. And now we're panicking and we're in the bad pain. But just because you're crying hard or you're agonizing and you're wallowing, that can be a really wonderful pain. And let me tell you, crying is the best intervention you will ever run into. And you can actually cry your way through an anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress disorder. It's just a lot of crying, and I don't recommend that. I did once cry myself through an OCD and post-traumatic episode. Thank goodness, because I didn't have any tools for that. Those were back in my college days. I spent 2 weeks crying. It's effective. And try to cry effectively. And that means not talking crap about yourself or crying. Cry, pay attention to the pain, and cry. If people are distracting you and pulling you away while you're crying, you're not paying attention to the pain and crying. Or even just like, it just hurts my heart so bad. I'm just so hurt. I'm so hurt. I'm so hurt. And crying, wonderful. Those are good skills. If you can just be with somebody while they're crying, sometimes that's great anchoring and grounding for them. That's productive wallowing in pain. And that is the good pain. And that's the pain you won't have to do again. Now, there might be still other pain in there, right? But in your brain, I'm going to make up a story. In your brain, there's pain 3, there's pain 365, there's pain 6,800, there's pain 1 billion. There's like 16 billion pains in there, and they all have markers, and you will not process the same pain twice. You might be on 1,265,000. Yes, now that's a real thing. And so there might be a lot of pain processing. Yes, that is a truth. I'm not going to lie. That's true. You would not have symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, and as many as you do if you did not have pain in there and you were not hurt or disappointed or ashamed. Whatever the pain is, those symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress are not your problem. Now, yes, in my program, I teach you how to work through these things so that you can get your brain to resolve these and move them out of the way, because we got work to do to get to the real problem, which is this pain. And it's very difficult to focus on the pain if you've got symptoms everywhere. Plus, if you've got symptoms, that would tell us if you get in the pain, you're going to go into bad pain. So we need to clear those out of the way so you have room to sit here. And so this is a very empowering place. And so this is why wallowing in your pain effectively. And now let me tell you this. If you're going to be in pain, I'm going to ask you to be using an intervention. Those are some of the guidelines I give my clients because I want to ensure that their brain is moving through the brain's healing process. Could the brain be doing it itself? Yes, but since you have symptoms and I know this function is impaired, I'm not going to trust it to do this work and then have to repeat the work again because your brain could not move through its healing process. So when I have people do this, I have people use these interventions a lot. I have them use it 2 hours every day because I wanna get the brain going. And all this stuff that's happening, your spouse bothered you, your child this, you're late here, you're being disorganized here, you're falling asleep over there, you can't get yourself out of a nap, your thoughts are racing. All this stuff it's all helps the healing process. And it all, as this stuff's healing, it's creating a layer, a very strong healing place for you to stand up on. You're going to need to be able to stand up on this stuff to be able to do this pain work. So all this stuff is very, very valuable. So gosh, I'm just going on and on and on about this, but I think you're picking up what I'm putting down, how important this pain is, and properly processing this. And so when your time for moving pain is there, get the support you need. And when you feel like you need more support to get to the pain, you do. Listen to yourself, hear yourself. I find that people know how to heal. If you're listening to you, if somebody is listening to you, they can hear what that you're when I'm working with people, I hear the process. I actually figured out how to show people to how to hear themselves to create their healing path. So, yes, I'm plugging my program. It's in the program. so, uh, so yes, that's in there. But you can hear yourself. You can hear the next step you need to take once you know what you're listening for. And then you can really build confidence in that. So yes, I would encourage anyone and everyone to take my program, but the truth is that it's really effective for people who have already developed a level of awareness of their symptoms. If you don't know you have symptoms, maybe not the place to start for you. If you think you're yelling because your spouse made you mad, the awareness is not there yet. Right? You could still, what I would recommend for you, if you haven't built the awareness yet, or the other thing that I would say, wait a little bit longer to join the program if you cannot think straight around your trauma. And by that, I have a whole video about that. If you go in and your mind ping pongs around, if you can say, okay, my mind is ping ponging around right now, let me use an intervention. This is awesome. This you are ready for a healing journey with Rachel. If you are here with this and you can't, and someone says, "Hey, you want to use an intervention right now because it looks like your brain is going everywhere," and you're like, "I don't need an intervention because they did all this to me, and how will I?" If you are doing all of that, that it's not you're not going to get the most benefit out of the program. That what I would say is watch the videos, learn how to use the interventions, and start using the interventions as you feel comfortable. And pretty soon you will create enough healing in your brain that you will start to notice patterns and habits that are your symptoms. And once you have that awareness, this is the time to start the program. Then you will be able to move forward, right? And I'm not talking about those moments where you lose your mind and you act a fool I still have those. I'm talking about where that's the majority of where you're staying in your life, right? So know that those are two separate little things, not little, they're two separate things. And when you have episodes of brain malfunction or less optimal brain function, that's different than that's where you're at right now. And your whole brain is doing that. That one, just grab an intervention and start using it a lot. But don't think about it too much. Just use it. And pretty soon you'll create enough space. And when I say pretty soon, if you're using the interventions actively, you can create that space and that you can there's a healing stance I look for. And that's the ability to be 1 foot in the symptom and 1 foot out. And once you can get that, you're ready to go. You can go do the work. If you are going 2 feet in all the time and you're living in both feet are in and you can't come out and see what's happening, that whenever you can use an intervention, use it. Okay. And then you'll be in a really great place to start this program and this journey with me. Whether it's just using my intervention, I have a self study route, and I have also an 8-week intensive. And so the self-study one, it just, you use it on your terms. I'm hearing wonderful reviews from people. They're sending me emails. I love it, that are using the program, and it's just so exciting. But that, I wanted you to know that the help is available. And if you don't know where you're at or you're confused, grab a spot on my calendar. I'll spend up to an hour with you. It's usually around 30 minutes. And I will look at where you're at right now, and I'll help you figure out your next best steps, even if they're not with me. Okay. Because we need to be healing. We need to come out of this pain. So I'm going to read. Oh, yay. Look at so many questions. Okay, I'm going to read these. I'm going to take them now, even though we're just doing a long one today. Okay, Jennifer says, I have had to just accept and be comfortable with feeling like I'm an Eeyore. Yes. I have a lifetime of constant, severe, and complex trauma. The healthiest thing I've ever done is to process all of that, to wallow. Yes. I felt so much relief and peace come from doing exactly as you're saying. It's changed my whole life. I'm a much better mom and friend now. Yes. You know what? If you were trying to mom and your leg was cut severely and you were bleeding everywhere, you're not going to be a very good mom. The pain of that would really knock you right out. So please go deal with the pain. And then guess what? You're going to be back to being an awesome mom. And that's the same thing with this emotional wellness and mental health, is that it's not happening for no reason. It's happening because there is pain. And then we're mad at ourselves because we're not being how we want to be, and we're negative and in ER, we're just sad and depressed. No, you have pain. And if we could see what it looked like, we would all be as alarmed as you are. But since it's emotional and mental, we can't see it. And so I encourage you, trust yourself, always trust yourself. And Jennifer, thank you for sharing that, because I think those are the exact experiences we need to be talking about. So thank you. Oh, yes. Yay. Anyway, tears. I'm saying yay, tears. Gosh. Crying can be such a great thing, for good. It moves emotion. It moves the good stuff, and helps the brain really make more space for good. It moves the not good stuff, the pain, and it just helps the brain make more space for good. I mean, it's just winning. I find using emotional freedom techniques and thought field therapy and energy medicine more pleasant than crying. But for a good cry, there's just nothing like a good cry. But these interventions are faster than crying, and can be used more targetedly and specifically, because you can't always tell yourself, okay, cry now, but you can use these interventions now, so you can still help your brain do its healing. So yay. And she says, I'm so grateful for this video. You're welcome. Thank you, Jennifer. Sherry says, what causes this blocking of the brain's ability to process the pain? Great. I want to say simply that's the survival system. It starts to perceive the pain as too much for your system to be able to tolerate, and it believes that the pain will overwhelm your system and prevent you from surviving. And so its job is to attack or take over and get you out to help you survive. And so it doesn't determine, it doesn't understand this is pain that's coming from inside myself, and that will actually be fine. Or this is pain that's coming outside myself, like a warrior is chasing me with one of those little arrows with, whatever. It doesn't know the difference. It can't distinguish between the levels of threat. It can only say this emotion right here is threatening my survival. Or this pain is threatening my survival. And the pain might be grief pain. It might be shame pain. It doesn't know, it doesn't process at that level, from my understanding. So, and that part of the brain is not a thinking center, a reasoning center. So it's just responding. Is this a threat? Is this not a threat? Is this a threat? Is this not a threat? And so anytime it decides that it's a threat, something's a threat, it steps in and turns on survival mode. And that's really important, because survival mode is not healing mode. That once survival mode goes on, the healing process ends. Many processes in the body ends like digestion and many other things, and the body's energies and electricity and all that stuff move to the arms and legs and whatever. And you will get a survival response, which is usually either fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. You don't get to choose these. Your survival system chooses these for you. Once you're in these, you're not in a healing. You're not, your healing process is offline. So what happens is as your inner healer goes and tries to pick stuff up and put it on the launch pad for healing, right? Let's pretend this is your survival system. And your inner healer goes back in there, grabs something, which usually is over here because it hasn't made its way through yet because of pain. And so as it grabs this package of whatever it's been looking for, and it finally got its little hands on, and it starts to move it forward, the whole pain begins to radiate through your system, and your survival system's like, what's that? And then it's like, oh, it's this. And so it will like knock it out of your inner healer's hand and shove it back in and go into a survival state. Fight, flight, freeze, or faint, or fawn. And that's where you're noticing these survival states as you can notice them with your behaviors. You can notice them with what's going on in your body. Sometimes you have a feeling that you need to flee. Sometimes you have a feeling that you need to just start saying all people pleasing, right? That's fawning, saying all the things to appease somebody. Forget what you wanted, just make sure they're happy so that they're no longer a threat, right? And these things, these survival responses can be very outdated because you're like, look, it's not dangerous anymore. Let's just move it through. But it doesn't, the survival system doesn't care. It really is running on the program. And so if there's pain, it will respond and it will interrupt the healing process. And so the interventions like crying and emotional freedom techniques and thought field therapy help take the stuff and start desensitizing it. So it starts taking the pain out. It helps the brain do that. And and so that this thing, when it passes by, when you touch it, it's not creating pain. That's signaling a threat to your survival system. So since there's no threat being activated, your survival system will let it go. And so, and then it can move. Usually brains don't typically have any problem once it gets past the survival system. And so most of my effort is this step. This is what I really spend the most time training people to do, is getting stuff from here over to here, then up here, right? And a lot of the brain function will continue, and I will have them be like, okay, let's let the brain do that. Let's come over here and keep, like, what else can we pull through? You know? And so that's really what the brain needs help with, because this is not a wise function, and it needs to, what it's programming, the old programming needs to be redone. And so the brain has a process for redoing the program. So I can't really go into that more here, but I will tell you, I have put that into my 8-part process program. That's in there. Sometimes I don't label them as this. I just give you things to do and I know exactly what it is. And then you say, oh, hey, I just did this and this and this. Because sometimes you can learn from your brain too. And you'll once your brain does it, you'll start to have words for it, because all this stuff, once it goes through the pathways, it will come through your word center and there will be words finally. So, but another way of saying what causes the blocking of the brain's ability to process is trauma. Trauma is too much pain. The pain couldn't make it through the process and there wasn't enough support to get it through. That's one of the reasons why we use interventions, is to give the brain the support it needs to get that stuff through. And that's why we do specific exercises not exercises, but strategies to get the stuff small enough that can move through, right? So between the strategy of getting the stuff in the right size for your brain and the interventions, that's really the skill that you can absolutely learn how to do for yourself, with or without a ton of support. So there's that. Okay, I have to run and turn my hair down one more time. Okay, so yes, and so sometimes that blocking has happened at a really young age, and that's trauma, like that process has been impaired. and for younger children, it can come on really, really quickly. If you've got children at home and you start using these interventions, emotional freedom techniques, thought-filled therapy, energy medicine with them, a lot of times they resolve those things like super fast. And then you're like, why does it take me so long? Well, your stuff is tangled more, and you have to help your brain untangle this big ball, which it can do, and it's ready to do it, wants to do it. And so that's really, you just, and the more you walk the brain through its healing process, the more it remembers how to do that, and it really will build the strength to do that, and then the stamina, and then it will be able to process things that are so big. You're like, wow. You're so impressed with your brain, and it's really healing and connective to you and your brain to do this, because a lot of times when we have symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, we can really feel like our brain is trying to attack us and harm us, and so we really don't trust ourselves anymore, and that's not supposed to be there. So we really, doing this healing work is very, very reconnective, and just healing. So in healing that self-trust, and reconnecting us with our body, our mind, and our mental function. So it's really important. How can we help our brain? How can we help the brain to do this with the interventions? Okay. I don't know how to answer that. Okay, so let me start with saying that, because I have taken 8 parts to explain that from front to back, so that you can walk through each step, each layer of this work as I've discovered as is needed to do the whole thing. A lot of times when we're trauma therapists, we're trained to process trauma. That's what we're good at. That doesn't mean that we're good at moving a whole disorder into remission. That doesn't mean we know how to do that. We know how to process trauma. If you have one of those therapists and you have processed as much trauma as you can think of and you still have symptoms, it's time to find the next person who can help you with the whole thing. Um, and so, okay. But what I will tell you is that when you take the interventions and you do one project, which if you watch my videos, you'll do that. You'll do one project, and that is how the brain heals. And when you get that thing through and it starts reducing, so let's say this little piece of pain feels like a 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being maximum distress and 0 being no pain at all. And you start using an intervention, and then you check in with it 30 seconds later, and it goes down to 8. It was a 10, now it's an 8. And then you start using the intervention, and you can get that all the way down to a 0. That's the process. Now, what happens is that in adult brains, you work on this thing, and it was a 10, and you've got it down to an 8, and you can't get it down anymore, because it's got little curly cues going into other things, and the other things have to be processed before, right? So you want to get as many of those guys as you possibly can, because then this little thing that you're working on that was an 8, now after you've done all this stuff, you come back to check in on it, and now it's a 4. And you can just leave it there. You can do a little bit more intervention with it, a little bit more emotional freedom techniques. It might come down to a 2. And then there's still a 2 left. You need to find where that 2 of pain is coming from. And that's really an art and a skill that you can learn. And you basically, the first layer of the work is pain hunting. And which is, you can find pain by taking your symptoms. If you have, if at nighttime before you go to bed, you have racing thoughts, or maybe that's where flashbacks show up. You can take that flashback and you can start using interventions with it. This will resolve the pain, start pulling the pain of the flashback through. To get rid of the flashback is there because the brain, your inner healer is trying to grab stuff up from that area that we were talking about, and it's pulling it through. Well, it's creating a flashback because you're becoming aware of a past memory in this moment. And it's doing that once a flashback starts. Now you have a survival response, because survival system's like, what is all that pain? And it knocks it out. But maybe now you experience it as racing thoughts, or you can't breathe anymore, or any of those things, right? So you got to help your inner healer grab that stuff and pull it through, so that the flashback stops. And that means moving pain. And so you have to be able to, I teach people how to do this, how to resolve flashbacks in the program. And in my 8-week program, we do this. Um, but the art is to grab as little bit as you can. And sometimes it's about working specifically with your survival system. And I need a lot longer to teach you how to do that. But what I will tell you is that when you're using the interventions, they are working specifically and targetedly with your survival system. Back in the talk therapy days, when you're talking, you're only engaging the thinking center, and that is not the part of the brain that has the problem. That is the part of the brain that's helping you create symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, but not because of a problem, but because the whole process is blocked. It's doing its job very well. And if the rest of the brain would get with the program, this stuff would heal already. So the interventions work specifically with your survival system that helps it allow healing to happen and also helps empower the whole brain, your survival system, your nervous system, your body to come along with the healing process and actually do the healing work. Everybody's good at that, but the survival system doesn't let them. Okay. Now, I love the survival system. I'm not trying to take that away from you. I just want your survival system to be accurate. Sometimes it's reacting to stuff that's not a danger anymore, but it has that association and that programming to react like that, and that has to be resolved. So, um, so Miriam, you can ask me that much more specifically, and I will try to answer that more specifically because it's very broad, and I answer that question very well in my program, but I don't know how to do that better than I just did. With the time we have. And so Miriam also says, I noticed that when I had a trigger and I try to work with something that it's painful, my brain immediately block every feeling and I feel numb. Yes. Okay. So when you say I'm trying to work on something, we're going to call this something, right? That's the thing you were working on. And when you did that, your brain went numb and you felt blocked. Okay. That means you're not supposed to work on something yet. Okay. And I would have you back up and start working on the numb feeling or how you know you're blocked. And usually, if you can ask yourself, because if you say I'm blocked, your body gave you and your mind gave you some signals of that translated to you as I'm blocked. And if we can get in there and find out what those signals were, we can use the intervention on each one of those signals. And then we can get your brain to process that. And it's like the brain is like, do I need this response right now? Do I need this response right now? And the brain will resolve that itself so that all that numbness and the blockness is resolved first. And then we come back and see, can you process something? And if no, your brain will tell you why no. That's the stuff you're going to go off and work on. And you're going to use the interventions with that stuff. That's the stuff around the lake that we talked about. That's that stuff. And so it's not the stuff, it's not the lake, but it's the stuff around it that has to go through the brain's healing process too. And so try using the interventions on the numbness. Not trying to not be numb, because that numbness is there, because usually numbness is usually means that it's your brain and your body saying, I'm in incredible pain. So we don't want you to not be numb, because if you were not numb, like, it's your brain's survival strategy that's there for its own wisdom and reason. We're not trying to get rid of that. But if you start tapping on, I'm all this numbness, I'm so numb. Maybe you're tapping about, I hate how numb I am right now. You can tap about anything about the numbness. I'm always numb, or I wake up numb. I'm numb at 3 o'clock. I'm numb at 4. Right? All those are just tricks to pay attention to the numbness. And you don't need any words whatsoever. You can just feel it in your body. Words for some people are very distracting, and they won't get work done with words. So if you're working on that numbness, your brain will start saying, because it's moving through its process around the numbness. Why are we so numb? And then it will start telling you why you're numb. And just as that stuff starts coming up, that's the stuff you'll want to grab or write down on your paper. And then you'll want to start tapping along with that. So there's lots of ways to really go after that. But the feedback you're getting when you're trying to work on something is very important to your healing. All that stuff is really, really good stuff. And it is the stuff. You might be annoyed with the numbness coming back up, but that's the stuff that you're actually supposed to be working on. Because like I said, it's the stuff around the lake of pain. Like, you found the lake, it's called something, whatever it's called, and then all that stuff out there. Okay. So Jennifer says, yes, I love that. And that dissociation, somebody's replying. Oh, yeah. So also that numbness and that blocked feeling can be a form of dissociation. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. And it very much is in the same, it's in the dissociation family, absolutely. Um, I think when I'm in somebody's world, I'm trying to um, uh, see what the brain's doing with the numbness. And but absolutely, yes, it's absolutely in the dissociation family. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Good job, Sherry. This is what we're always expanding these things. Lots of my understanding of this stuff is very functional. And that does not mean it's very accurate. I mean, you hear me telling you stories that are about function. That's not, I mean, the poor interpersonal neurobiologists that spend time actually looking at the brain and watching it fire off, they're probably like, oh my gosh, I can't stand to hear it. But the function of this is actually how I experience it. And that's what numbness is there for. So, but it does fall. It is categorized under the dissociation family, and and that is not a bad thing. Dissociation can be, it's absolutely helpful when it's helpful, but it can really turn into a disorder and a pattern, and that's what we don't want. We want to support the brain to come out of that. And there are lots of interventions that will help with dissociation, and perhaps I will do some trainings on those. But what I find with dissociation is that until the pain stops, the dissociation really won't go away. And You can work with it and support it, but it's really it's really kind of a helper, and it can really let you know there's pain in there. It doesn't have to be a game stopper. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Um, so Sherry says, if someone has the cure for cancer, should they charge millions for that knowledge, or should they share it to everyone for free with the greater good of humanity? Um, I don't like the word should, because it in part implies shame, and shame on them, or shame here and shame there, and I don't find shame to be helpful. Um, and I also think that I think it's great to share the knowledge. I mean, that's really what I've had so much fun with for me personally, is just sharing these interventions and try them out, see what you can do, play with your brain, play with your brain, play with your brain. And so that's really what I find. But until food is free and rent is free and all the kids' sports that you want to put your kids in are free, I think that we definitely do have to charge for services. So, but that's not necessary that we have to charge for knowledge, and we can absolutely share the knowledge to the best of our abilities. So that's my thought on it. And what's so cool is that there's so many people sharing this knowledge that it's getting fun out here. When I was doing my work, I had no idea. Someone just happened to share emotional freedom techniques with me and said, try this, it'll change your life. I had a great first interaction with it, and I was, what else can I use this with? And I did my work for free, which was awesome because I was severely mentally ill and homeless, and with three small children. And gosh, what a horrible time. And so, and I really needed that tool to pull myself into wellness enough to think straight and actually solve my problems, which I thank you, my mother, I never had to live on the streets with my children, but I had really gotten that bad. And that I would have if she would not have scooped me up. I really could not solve my problems. And so there's lots of, I think that there's so many ways to heal, and it's not just one way. And so I don't think anybody by charging is blocking the door from somebody. I think that the door for you, if you want healing, knock and it shall open for you. That's what I think. There's so many ways to heal, and then you get to choose which one you want, which one fits for you. And then guess what, you can even try some and say, this doesn't work, let me try another one. Oh, that doesn't work, let me try another one. You know what I mean? So um, that's what I think. And so to answer that, I hope I answered that well. Yeah. Okay. So Jennifer says it did knock me out. I was a hot mess, angry mama. Not anymore. Good. 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 Okay. And Suzanne says, I relate to this. Oh, she's replying to Miriam. Um, my practitioners are like, you seem unemotional. Yeah. Gosh, and if you're a practitioner and your client seems unemotional, that means they're in extensive amounts of pain. Do not disturb their survival strategy. Help them with the pain, and the survival strategy will go away. Brains, well, I'm not going to say that, make that statement. I was going to say brains don't use unnecessary strategies. But that's not true. But when the brain is healing, it will discard unuseful stuff it doesn't need anymore. That's part of this one process, this one healing function. And once that gets moving and rolling, it will take down all of these other functions. You will get your joy back. You will get your happiness back, your creativity. You will get that back. You will get your ability to be awake, your energy back. All that stuff is but the brain, once the pain is too big, it has to start suppressing it because that's this what it feels like it needs to survive, and it's probably right. And so that suppression is really important for why it's there. And once you start moving the pain under it, pretty soon it doesn't need it anymore. And pretty soon people are like, I'm going in for the pain. And it's like, okay, let's do this. Right. And then they go in and they heal the pain and they restore function. And it's something that passes. So that's really, so thank you so much for saying that. And I don't find that statement, "You seem unemotional," to be very helpful, and I would ask and invite practitioners to explore why they're sharing that and what they're likely to find, or, you know, or what they're hoping for. But I think, I think there's a way to say this, and I wanna find that way to say this. I'm not finding a way that I would say that. I think that, I mean, I say things like, "It seems like you're in a lot of pain right now, and we're gonna get to that." If you can't be supportive, stay out of it at least, but and help provide them the direction that they really can take, because that pain is, it's brutal, and it's just as bad as any of the physical ones. So, I hope this helps you. I hope you have a great night and that you really wallow in your pain, but wallow well, and with wallow well. Learn an intervention, support yourself, get support. Whatever you've got to do, move that pain, because hurt people, you know? And so not necessarily the one that will be hurting people, but the hurt will hurt people. And just like the hurt is hurting you. And I say that because many of us have children, and some of them are like, that's their major motivation for us to do this healing work, to move that pain. I know for me, moving that pain has made my children have more space in my life, right? And as they grow and they require more emotional space from me, because they do, because I'm not emotionally ready for some things that adolescence brings. And so I have to do this work to create more space and more function and more ability, so that my kids have more space in there. And many of you are noticing that same thing. So this work, moving that pain, really gives you that ability to really create more space and make sure the pain doesn't hurt them, that the pain is used for you, it's used for your brain's healing process. That the pain can really be from the back of the brain, and we want it to come out through the front of the brain. That's a healthy process. That brain can do that all day long. But what happens is, if it can't move through its function, it stays in the back of the brain, creating juicing up your survival system and energizing your survival system, because that pain is an emotion. Emotion is energy. And so that's energizing and feeding your survival system and all your survival strategies. We don't want the energy there. We want the energy to come through your healing pathways to the front of your brain, where your problem solver is, where your healer is, where your program rewriter is, where all of that. And that's what these tools really help do, is to help move all of that pain and emotion from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. So definitely all this pain is coming up to go out. That's what we want it to do. We want it to come out the front. And so, and anyway, I could go on and because you know I can, but we're in an hour and a half. So wonderful hanging out with you all. I left links if you want to know more about my program or how I can support you. Also, like I said, you can grab a spot on my calendar. I'm going to put that link. I'm not getting off ever. If you want to grab a spot on my calendar for a call, we'll do that. And we'll talk soon. Take care, and I'll be back.